Thank you. That's very kind. Hello, everybody. Really good to be here. And oh my goodness, this podium is massive. Do I look like I'm wearing a podium? Because I feel like I'm wearing a podium. Okay, so my name is Henny Swan, and I am an accessibility specialist. I say in a semi-confessional voice. And I come from an accessibility consultancy called Tetralogical. I consider myself today to be incredibly fortunate because I work with a team of accessibility specialists who have a deep knowledge of what they do, but they also specialize in different areas of accessibility, from mobile to web to extended reality. We've got skill sets in biometrics, emerging games, all sorts. So when I have those meetings with customers and they ask me a question that I'm not quite sure that I can answer because it's not quite within my specialism, I have a lovely group of people that I can fall back on and bring into the conversation. It's a privilege to be able to be like that, because I do remember the time when I was the only accessibility specialist in the room and how difficult it can be. We've come a really long way with accessibility, but just from kind of listening in on social media and LinkedIn and various other places and talking to people on a daily basis, I know there's a lot of people out there, a lot of you out there who are still the only ones in your teams or departments or organizations who are fighting the good fight of accessibility, either officially or unofficially. Maybe you have it in your job title, maybe you don't. And it's really tricky. It's really difficult because you might come from a design background and maybe not be quite so confident in development, or vice versa. So yes, I salute you. I think it's incredibly hard. I want to acknowledge that, and I want to share with you some of the things that, or strategies that I've evolved over the years to help me when I've been that person. First up, we have empathy. Put people first. At Tetralogical, we believe in a world where technology holds no one back. At the heart of that, we're thinking about people who are using technology and playing games, people with disabilities, people without disabilities, from different groups. But if we dig deeper, we're also looking at ways to try and support people who are designing and building those accessible games and technologies. Equally, people managing and delivering. It's really important to have an empathy as the accessibility specialist to try and understand what people's pain points are when it comes to doing their job and making things accessible. The really big one is lack of time, of course, lack of budget, lack of support, lack of documentation. So your role is to be there to help them do their jobs within those constraints, or even, we should say, perhaps outside of those constraints. So as well as being an accessibility specialist, your role is really around diplomacy, communication, and empathy. Which leads me to responsibility. And I know you know this, and it was called out in the previous talk. You are not the sole person responsible for accessibility. Nobody is solely responsible for accessibility. From product owners, developers, engineers, and QA, the list is as long as there are roles within your company team. Whatever you do, you have a responsibility to make it accessible. That includes company owners, the founders, the CEOs, and the directors, who have a moral and legal responsibility to set the agenda for accessibility. But we can easily forget that if accessibility is in your job description. You can sometimes get so swamped being asked questions, you think it is your responsibility, and teams around you think it's your responsibility. But your responsibility is to hold fast and make it clear that you're there to support people as they make the right decisions moving forward. Which takes me to relationships. Your role is as much about relationships, remember, diplomacy and communication, as it is about accessibility. If you are feeling lonely in that place, seek out the decision makers and the managers, the people who can make things happen because they have the budget and they have the first say and the last say about what requirements might go into a game, what accessibility requirements you can prioritize, things like that. Find out what their pain points are and speak their language. But equally, Look for the designers and the engineers and the testers, the people who want to do this, the people who need your time and your support to empower them and help them. If you match your skill set with the skill set of a designer or a developer, you become a force of strength to make this happen. Which takes me to my next bit, scale. Find ways to amplify what you do. Invest your time in not doing the work for others, but showing others how to do what you do. You will have plenty of people, I'm sure today, landing in your inbox, messaging you over Slack, popping in that sly little 30-minute meeting into a calendar to say, show me how to make this accessible to a screen reader in 30 minutes. It's not going to happen. You cannot do all the work. So document a process. Share with people how they can do this for themselves independently. You will also find that because they are specialists in their role and what they do, they will elevate the ideas that come from you and again become a force to be reckoned with. Equally, document those common questions you get asked again and again and again, and put them in places where your organization pools knowledge. That can be anything from Confluence to a wiki, onboarding, training materials, through to a design system, documentation, style guides, editorial. When I first started working at BBC, I was in an accessibility team of 2, or at least I thought I was. There were others in the building I didn't know about, namely Ian Hamilton over there. And I felt very, very alone. And it was hard work. I worked in products. I worked in 2 products specifically, and they got whatever they could get from me in terms of knowledge, but it stopped right there, right? So with my boss, we flipped the narrative. I pulled out of working on products and started working on a framework because that was a smarter use of my time in order to elevate others. And that helped me build more relationships as well, because as that happened, others came along who'd already been building frameworks, and we started to pull these things together and map them better. Which takes me to managing expectations. Accessibility is as broad as it is deep. You cannot be a specialist in everything to the extent that people need you to be. So you need to manage expectations around what you can do and what you can't do. You have your strengths, know your strengths, play to your strengths, build up a list of trusted people and resources around you that you can then lean on to help you bolster what you do know. You can also say no to people. That's totally legitimate, but what I wouldn't say is no outright. Say no with solutions. So if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I've got this product, can you give it a head to toe, thorough test against some accessibility guidelines by Tuesday week? That's not a good use of your time. It's a lot to do, too much to do, but perhaps you could say, hey, you know what, I can do 2 screens for you, then we can sit down, look at the main themes that are coming out, work out some action points for you moving forward. If they still insist on a deeper dive or testing within that product, say to them, right, let's get some budget together, we'll commission some work for you so we can get this tested. We can get it tested by end users, or we can get it tested by an external consultancy. And again, what you can do is curate the findings that you get, not just back into that product that you've been working with, not on, but you can curate those findings to go back into that overall pool of knowledge within your organization. So no is okay. Support. You've built up your network, and that is a continuous thing within your organization. And you're probably doing this all now, and you'll find pockets of people who are willing and there and have already done a phenomenal job. But if you really are the only person in your team or in your organization, you're going to need a little bit more support, almost like a safe place to go and offload, ask questions, have a meltdown, celebrate your successes, because sometimes we don't want to share that externally within an organization when you're meant to be the person who has to know everything. So go and seek out groups externally as well. So on Discord, there are a few. around gaming and accessibility that you can dig into. So we'll put the links out on, later. But IGDA, GA, SIG, GRUX, and We Can Fix It. On Slack, there's the UK game industry. And then on LinkedIn, and I know that's not everyone's favorite place, there is Champions of Accessibility Network, which I think is a particularly useful group because that's where you can get insight into how other companies are doing this and building their culture of accessibility and building champion networks. Some are from the gaming industry, but some are they're from all over, and there's common learning points from each. But one of the areas I think is really good, and something I wish I'd done back in the day, is get a mentor. So there is Limit Break, where you can get a mentor, and if you're in that position where you want to offer some time to mentor people, do that as well. So, takeaways. Empathize with the people around you and remember accessibility is a shared responsibility. Build relationships with decision makers and practitioners so you can scale what you do through demonstration and documentation. Manage expectations about what you can and can't do as much within yourself as externally to people around you, while building an internal and external support network. And my last takeaway is you. At the start, I said your role is as much about diplomacy, communication, and empathy for the challenges that teams face when making things accessible. But you need to show that empathy to yourself as well. You need to look after your headspace and be realistic about what you can do. You don't need to do everything. All you need to do is make things just a little bit better today than they were yesterday. You can find a copy of this talk as a blog post on, I'll give you the short URL, bit.ly/accessibility-specialist, or just Google the only accessibility specialist in the room. There is also a QR code up on the screen. That's of any use. Thank you for listening.